Hello students, welcome to the botany class. So in the syllabus, I'm taking up 4th unit, that is angiosperm embryology. Now let us move on to the first topic in that unit, that is morphology and anatomy of mature anther. Before going to the actual topic, let us recall the structure of a flower. So in lower classes, you might have studied about the flower structure, right? So a typical flower, it consists of 4 parts. They are sepal, petal, stamen and carpel. These are the 4 main parts of a typical flower. Now of these 4 parts, the first 2 parts means sepal and petal, they are not involved in the process of reproduction. Hence, these 2 parts are referred as accessory organs or non-essential organs of a flower. Whereas, the remaining 2 parts means stamen and the carpel, these 2 parts are involved in the process of reproduction. Hence, these 2 parts are called as reproductive organs. So, sepal and petals are referred as accessory organs, whereas the stamen and carpels are referred as reproductive organs. So, in this way, a typical flower contains 2 organs, accessory organs as well as reproductive organs. Now, this is a picture of a typical flower. So, in this you can clearly observe the different parts like the outermost part, which is called as the sepal, and next to the sepal a brightly colored part is present, which is called as petal. So these 2 parts are called as the accessory organs. Now next to the petal, stamens as well as carpels are present. These 2 parts are involved in the process of reproduction of a flower. Because of this nature, they are referred as reproductive organs. So these are the parts of a typical flower. So now coming to the reproductive organs of a flower. Here the stamen is considered as male reproductive organ. So stamen is the male reproductive organ of the flower and it is also called as androecium. So androecium is the male reproductive organ of the flower. Now this male reproductive organ, that is stamen, it mainly consists of 3 parts. They are filament, connective and anthers. So these 3 are the parts of a stamen: filament, connective and the anther. So here the filament, it is a long, slender, stalk-like part. It is the long, stalk-like part of the stamen and its proximal end, this end, it is attached to the thalamus or to the petal of the flower. So filament, it is a stalk-like part and its proximal end is attached to the thalamus or to the petal of the flower. The next part is the anther. So this is the terminal portion. So this terminal portion or terminal part of the stamen is called as the anther, in which the pollen grains are produced. Now what do you mean by connective? So connective is nothing but it is the part present between the anther and the filament. So connective, which connects the anther and the filaments. So in this way there are 3 parts in a stamen: filament, connective and anther. Okay. So now the anther, it may be monothecous or dithecous. Now what do you mean by monothecous and dithecous? So now this is the picture of a monothecous and Dithecus anther. So in Monothecus anther, the anther consists of two locules or two chambers. Locules are nothing but the chambers. And these chambers are also called as sporangia or microsporangia. So, when we take the transverse section of a anther, of a monothecous anther, we can clearly observe two chambers within that anther. So, these chambers are referred as sporangia. So, a monothecous anther, because of this nature, is said to be bilocular or bisporangiate. Why bilocular? Because it contains two locules. Locules are nothing but chambers. Why it is bisporangiate? Once again, it contains two sporangia. In the same way, a dithecous anther. So when we take the transverse section, within the dithecous anther, we can observe four chambers or four locules. Hence, a dithecous anther is said to be tetralocular or tetrasporangiate. Am I clear? So, a monothecous anther, because of the presence of two chambers, here chambers are also called as sporangia or pollen sacs. It may also called as pollen sacs, whereas the dithecous anther contain four pollen sacs. So because of these natures, a monothecous anther is said to be bisporangiate anther or bilocular anther, whereas a dithecous anther is said to be tetralocular or tetrasporangiate. So now this is the picture of a anther. This is the transverse section of the anther. So in this picture, you can clearly observe the pollen sacs or the chambers within the anther. So now this is the picture of a tetrasporangiate anther. So because of the tetrasporangiate structure within the anther, it contains four chambers or four pollen sacs, and within the pollen sacs, pollen grains are produced. Okay, within the pollen sacs, pollen grains are produced. So now this is the structure of a tetrasporangiate anther. So when we take the section, transverse section of this tetrasporangiate anther, we can observe four chambers here, and these chambers are also called as pollen sacs or microsporangia, and within the microsporangia it produces pollen grains. And this is the microscopic view of TS of microsporangium of a tetrasporangiate anther. So now we'll move on to the structure of a microsporangium. A typical microsporangium is nearly circular in outline. A typical microsporangium is nearly circular in outline. It contains four wall layers. They are epidermis, endothecium, middle layers, and tapetum. So there are four wall layers are present in the sporangium, in the microsporangium. They are epidermis, which is the outermost layer. Next to the epidermis, second layer is present, which is called as endothecium. Next to the endothecium, middle layers are present. And next to the middle layer, the innermost layer of the microsporangium called tapetum is present. Okay. Now of these four layers, these are the wall layers of a microsporangium. Of these four layers, the first three layers means epidermis, endothecium, middle layers. The function of these layers, it helps in protection and dehiscence. So the first three wall layers means epidermis, endothelium and middle layers help in protection and dehiscence, whereas the fourth innermost layer of the microsporangium, that is tapetum, it gives nourishment to the developing embryos. So what are the functions of wall layers? So the first three wall layers help in protection and dehiscence, whereas the fourth innermost wall layer, it gives nourishment or it gives nutrition to the developing pollen grains. So in young anther, each microsporangium has sporogenous tissue. Okay, in young anther, each microsporangium, it has sporogenous tissue at the center. So it consists of compactly arranged homogeneous diploid cells called sporogenous cells. So next to the tapetum, a mass of cells, a group of cells are present within the microsporangium. These group of cells are of a similar kind, hence homogeneous in nature, and these mass of cells are called as sporogenous tissue, and these mass of cells are diploid in nature. Now as the anther develops, each sporogenous cell means each diploid sporogenous cell, which is also called as pollen mother cell or microsporo mother cell. So this sporogenous cell, it is also called as pollen mother cell or microspore mother cell. Now as the anther develops, each pollen mother cell, which is diploid in nature, it undergoes meiotic division. So meiosis takes place here. As a result of meiosis, it forms 4 microspores. So what happens during the development of the anther? The individual sporogenous cell or pollen mother cell undergoes meiosis. As a result of meiosis, 4 microspores are present, and these microspores, they are arranged in a form of a tetrad. So tetrad means a cluster of 4 microspores. So from individual pollen mother cell, 4 microspores are produced, which are arranged in a form of tetrad. And this process of formation of microspores from a pollen mother cell through meiosis is called as microsporogenesis. Once again, I'll repeat the topic. The process of formation of microspores from a pollen mother cell through meiosis is called as microsporogenesis. Okay, clear? Now, as the anthers mature and dehydrate, the microspores dissociate from each other and develop into pollen grains. So what happens? As the anthers mature and dehydrate, the microspores dissociate. These microspores are arranged in the form of tetrad, right? Now these tetrad microspores, it dissociate means it separates from each other and develop into a pollen grains. So in this way, each microsporangium, so these are the microsporangium, each microsporangium contains thousands of pollen grains, and they are released with the dehiscence of anther. So these are about the process of microsporogenesis. Am I clear? So now let's move on to the next topic, structure of a pollen grain. Now at the end of the microsporogenesis, microspores gets converted into pollen grains. Okay. Now here each pollen grain is referred as male gametophyte. Why? Because the pollen grain carries the male gametes. Hence, because of the presence of male gametes, the pollen grain is referred as male gametophyte. Okay. Now, these are the pictures of a pollen grain. So, generally, a pollen grain, it is spherical in outline and it measures about 25 to 50 millimeter in diameter, and each pollen grain contains cytoplasm, which is surrounded by a plasma membrane, and in the outer layer, in the cell wall of the pollen grain, the cell wall is divided into two layers. The outer layer, which is called as exine, and the inner layer is called as intine. The exine, it is hard and it is the outermost layer of the pollen grain and is composed of a substance called sporopollenin. So, exine of the pollen grain is made up of sporopollenin. And along with the sporopollenin content, the exine also contains narrow areas. So, in this narrow areas, the sporopollenin is entirely absent. So, these narrow areas are referred as germ pores. Okay. So, the germ pores are present on the exine of the pollen grain. Now, next to the exine, a thin and continuous layer is present, which is made up of cellulose and pectin, and this layer is called as intine. So, exine is the outermost layer, which is hard because of the presence of sporopollenin, whereas intine is the inner layer, which is thin because of the presence of cellulose and pectin. So, now this is about the structure of a pollen grain, typical pollen grain. Now, as the pollen grain matures, it contains two cells. So, a matured pollen grain contains two cells. They are vegetative cell and generative cell. So, there